third video on regarding my brief exchange with Jay on my contention that his cosmology is dualistic and that the world and God are set over and against each other in a dialectic of opposition. Jay added, I've got a couple of brief notes. I don't mean for this to be very long, although it could easily become a lot more involved, but I wanted to update the situation because I got another response from Jay. It wasn't a particularly surprising response. It was really what one would expect. He just stated the classic Orthodox position, not just Orthodox, it's really the Christian view on creationism, admitting that God and the world consist of two utterly unlike substances, and that follows from his prior statement from the other day, in which he argued there is no dialectic of opposition because the physical world is an analog of the world in the mind of God. So the purpose of this video is just to expand a little bit on what I said in the last video by taking into account, I want to expand on it because I think there's more that could be said that I could have unpacked in the last video last night, but I didn't because Jay and I were still kind of exchanging messages, and I thought it would be better to allow for that to play itself out a little bit more. But so what I want to do here is just ask the question and then try to answer the question. Can both of these positions be correct at the same time? The position that there is no dialectic of opposition between God and the world because the physical world is an analog of the world in the mind of God. And then secondly, God and the world consist of two utterly, completely different substances. I'm going to argue that that is not possible. Jay obviously thinks that it is possible. So by virtue of the fact there is an analogy, Jay thinks that there cannot be an opposition. That's only true, that would only be true if he were not introducing an opposition between two worlds. And it's really kind of two ways of describing the same thing, right? My contention that he is dividing God and the world in an illegitimate way is really the same claim that I made just in a slightly different fashion last night, that he is juxtaposing two completely different worlds. You cannot argue for a unity between the world in God's mind and the physical world, because the unity, the world in God's mind is eternal, uncreated, and non-contingent, whereas the physical world is created and contingent. So one way to explain this a little bit better is to simply ask, was the world always in God's mind? And remember, we're talking pre-creation ex nihilo, right? So if you say that the world was not always in God's mind, then that means God undergoes change and he's not immutable. Or excuse me, it means he is, he's not immutable. So let me say that again, because I kind of stumbled there a little bit. If you say that the world was not always in the mind of God, God undergoes change and he is not immutable. If you take the position that that the world was always in the mind of God, then the world in God's mind is eternal. It's an eternal world. Now here's the kicker. If the world in God's mind is eternal, then necessarily it must have everything that the energies and the hypostases have, namely the divine essence. But if it has the divine essence, then the physical world cannot be created ex nihilo. It has to be the product of an eternal emanation. It has to be emanating from God's mind. So you cannot leave a gap. You cannot leave a wide gap between the energies and the physical universe. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think it's pretty simple. I think it's very simple, actually. It's a very simple concept to grasp. But it's hard in the sense that if you spend, your every waking day defending one view for years and years and years, undergoing that sort of revolution in your thinking is really almost asking somebody to flip their entire world upside down. So it's hard to do in that sense. Intellectually, it's a very simple thing, and there's really no argument against it. So I'm happy to invite Jay to prove me wrong, but he's not gonna disprove it. He's stuck with two choices, and that is two worlds that are in complete opposition, or the world is eternal. He can't have a world in the mind of God and then maintain the doctrine of creation, ex nihilo. You can't be a creationist. It's just not possible. All right, so have a good evening, guys, and I will give you a new update if and when it comes along.